If you wanted to build a human being from scratch, the shopping list would look strangely ordinary. You would need oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and dozens of other elements. In total, the human body uses about 59 different elements to become what you call you. Most of those ingredients are not rare, magical, or mysterious in any obvious way. Much of your body is oxygen and hydrogen, the same basic stuff found in water. You need carbon, the element that can become diamonds, soot, pencil lead, or living tissue. You need calcium to harden your bones, iron to carry oxygen, and salts to keep your nerves alive. If you insisted on buying purified laboratory-grade materials, the bill could reach roughly $150,000. That sounds expensive, but it creates a much stranger problem. You could gather every atom needed to make a human body and place them neatly on a table. You could invite the greatest scientists who ever lived and give them unlimited time, and they still could not assemble those dead ingredients into one living cell. Because the most astonishing thing about your body is not what it is made from. It is that anything made from these materials can wake up at all. The atoms inside you do not know your name, your memories, or your fears. They do not care whether you live, sleep, breathe, love, panic, or die. Yet somehow, an impossible crowd of mindless particles has formed a living body. They have become skin, blood, bone, thought, hunger, pain, and consciousness. You are not a ghost trapped inside a machine. You are dead matter behaving as if it desperately wants to stay alive. And every second, that matter is working harder than you can possibly imagine. While you sit still, your body is not still for even a moment. Your heart keeps pushing blood through a branching river system hidden under your skin. Your lungs pull invisible gas from the air and trade it for waste from your blood. Your liver filters, sorts, stores, breaks down, and rebuilds chemicals without asking permission. Your kidneys quietly decide what stays inside you and what must be thrown away. Your stomach turns food into a chemical storm, then somehow avoids digesting itself. Your bone marrow produces millions of new blood cells while you are doing absolutely nothing. Your immune system patrols your tissues, searching for cells that no longer behave like citizens. Most of this happens beneath awareness, beneath language, beneath anything you can feel directly. You experience yourself as one person, but biologically, you are more like a moving civilization. Tens of trillions of cells are cooperating without ever meeting the whole creature they create. Each cell lives in a microscopic world of gates, pumps, signals, alarms, factories, and waste systems. Some cells carry oxygen, some build bone, some fight invaders, and some fire electrical messages. Some cells die on purpose so that the rest of you can continue living. This is the first secret of the body. Survival is not calm. Survival is organized chaos. Most people imagine the body as a simple biological engine. Food goes in, energy comes out, sleep recharges the system, and the organs keep working. The heart pumps, the lungs breathe, the stomach digests, and the brain somehow runs the show. That version is comforting because it makes the body sound like a machine. Machines are understandable, repairable, and built from parts that stay where they are placed. But your body is not really a machine. It is a volatile chemical ecosystem that must be balanced every second. Your blood cannot become too acidic or too alkaline without threatening the chemistry of life. Your temperature cannot drift far without disrupting the proteins that keep your cells working. Your blood sugar cannot simply rise and fall freely like water in a tank. Your oxygen, salt, water, hormones, pressure, and heat all have to stay within narrow ranges. Too much of one thing becomes poison, and too little of another becomes disaster. The body survives by constantly correcting itself before you notice anything is wrong. This invisible balancing act is called homeostasis. It is the reason you can walk outside, eat a meal, get scared, sleep, sweat, and still remain you. But homeostasis has a terrifying implication. Life is not a stable condition. Life is a temporary victory over collapse. Every living body is always negotiating with chemistry, heat, time, hunger, infection, and damage. And to keep that negotiation going, the body needed a communication system. Long before humans existed, life began as single cells floating through ancient water. Those first organisms did not have hearts, bones, eyes, lungs, or thoughts. They were tiny bags of chemistry trying not to fall apart. Over billions of years, life became larger, stranger, and harder to coordinate. Cells joined together, divided their jobs, and slowly created bodies with specialized parts. A bigger body had a new problem. One part had to know what the other parts were doing. A stomach could not digest in isolation, and a heart could not pump without chemical instructions. A brain could not command the entire body by shouting through empty space. So, evolution built a messaging network out of molecules. That network is the endocrine system. Hormones are chemical messages that travel through the bloodstream like sealed instructions. They tell organs when to grow, when to rest, when to burn energy, and when to store it. They can sharpen hunger, soften pain, trigger puberty, raise blood pressure, and change mood. They can make your heart race before danger has even reached you. They can make a memory feel painful years after the event itself has disappeared. You often think you are making calm decisions from pure reason, but your chemistry is always whispering in the background. Hidden glands release tiny amounts of powerful substances, and your entire personality can shift. One of the strangest of these glands sits at the base of the brain. The pituitary gland is small enough to seem almost ridiculous, yet it helps control growth, reproduction, stress, water balance, and many other vital processes. It is often called the master gland, though even it takes orders from deeper brain systems. When it works correctly, you do not notice it at all. When it malfunctions, a human life can be reshaped by chemistry. Robert Wadlow was born in Illinois in 1918 as an ordinary-sized baby. But inside his head, a tiny gland refused to obey the usual limits. His body produced too much growth hormone, and childhood became something almost impossible. By 8 years old, he was already taller than many adult men. As a teenager, he kept growing past heights that human bones were never designed to carry. He eventually reached almost 9 feet tall, the tallest person ever reliably measured. His size made him famous, but it also turned his own body into a burden. He needed heavy leg braces just to support the weight that his chemistry had created. A brace rubbed his skin, caused an infection, and that infection eventually killed him. He was only 22 years old. That is the frightening power of a small chemical error. The same system that builds a body can also push it beyond what it can survive. For most of history, nobody understood that tiny secretions from glands could control human life. Doctors could see organs, wounds, bones, tumors, and blood. But hormones were invisible messages, and invisible things are easy to miss. The early search for them was strange, messy, and sometimes almost absurd. In the late 19th century, Charles Edward Brown Séquard performed a now infamous experiment on himself. He used extracts from animal testicles and claimed the injections restored his youth and strength. The scientific world was horrified, and his reputation suffered badly. But beneath the bizarre experiment was a real question. Could glands produce substances powerful enough to change the entire body? Over time, researchers discovered that the answer was yes. They found that the body was not controlled only by nerves and muscles. It was also controlled by chemistry moving silently through blood. That discovery changed medicine because it revealed something almost godlike. If chemistry could break the body, maybe chemistry could also rescue it. The clearest proof came from a disease that once felt like a slow execution. Type 1 diabetes was once one of the most terrifying diagnoses a child could receive. The problem was not that the child lacked food. The problem was that the body could no longer use the food properly. Without insulin, sugar stayed trapped in the bloodstream while the cells starved for energy. A child could eat and still waste away because the fuel could not enter the tissues. Before insulin treatment, doctors had almost nothing to offer except starvation diets. They reduced food intake to slow the damage, but they could not stop the disease. Then Frederick Banting and Charles Best began working with pancreas extracts in Toronto. Their laboratory work was imperfect, difficult, and far from glamorous, but they were chasing a chemical that could unlock the body's fuel. In 1922, a 14-year-old boy named Leonard Thompson received insulin treatment. He had been dying from diabetes. After improved insulin injections, his body could finally use sugar again. It was not magic, but to the people watching, it must have felt close. A child who was being consumed by his own broken chemistry was pulled back toward life. Insulin became one of the great turning points in medical history. It proved that the body's invisible messages could be replaced, repaired, or imitated, but it also revealed a darker truth. If a tiny hormone can save you, a tiny hormone can also betray you, and nowhere is that betrayal more familiar than hunger. Hunger feels simple because everyone knows what it is like to want food. But appetite is not a simple empty tank warning. It is a negotiation between fat cells, gut signals, brain circuits, stress, memory, sleep, and habit. In the 1990s, scientists discovered leptin, a hormone produced mostly by fat tissue. Leptin helps tell the brain how much stored energy the body has available. At first, it looked like the missing switch that could solve obesity. If fat cells could tell the brain when enough food had been stored, the solution seemed obvious. Give people more leptin, and perhaps the brain would finally say stop. But biology rarely gives simple answers to modern problems. In many people with obesity, leptin is already high. The signal is there, but the brain may stop responding to it properly. The body becomes like a city where the emergency sirens are always screaming. Eventually, the noise becomes background. This is why appetite can feel stronger than willpower. It is not just a moral weakness or a lack of discipline, it is ancient survival software running inside a world it was never designed to face. For most of human history, calories were not waiting under fluorescent lights in endless aisles. Sugar and fat were rare, precious, and worth chasing whenever they appeared. A brain that rewarded overeating during abundance had a better chance of surviving famine later. Fat storage was not a flaw in a starving world. It was insurance. But the modern world changed the environment faster than evolution could rewrite the code. The winter that your body prepares for often never comes. The survival mechanism that once protected us can now quietly damage us. That is one of the strangest themes of the human body. Many of its problems began as solutions. Hunger protected us from famine. Fever helped fight infection. Blood clotting stopped us from bleeding to death. Stress prepared us to escape danger. But in the wrong context, each protective system can become destructive. The body is not designed for perfection. It is designed for survival under conditions that no longer match our lives. And even when every signal is working, the body still needs power. Deep inside your cells, energy is stored in a molecule called ATP. ATP is often described as the body's tiny rechargeable battery. It captures energy from food and releases it in small bursts exactly where cells need it. Every muscle contraction, nerve impulse, heartbeat, and thought depends on this chemical exchange. The amount of ATP sitting in your body at any instant is surprisingly small. So your cells recycle it again and again with astonishing speed. Over a single day, you may turn over roughly your own body weight in ATP. That means your life depends on a molecular economy that never stops spending and rebuilding. From one angle, you are a person with memories and plans. From another angle, you are an ATP factory wrapped in skin. This energy system is not peaceful. Your cells maintain electrical gradients across membranes thinner than imagination can comfortably hold. Tiny charged particles move through gates, triggering signals, contractions, and chemical reactions. Your nerves speak in electricity, but not like wires in a wall. They speak in waves of charged atoms crossing living membranes. Every thought you have rides on this flickering electrical chemistry, but extreme energy creates an unavoidable problem because every living system that burns fuel also produces heat. Heat is dangerous because the chemistry of life only works inside a narrow temperature range. Proteins have precise shapes, and those shapes decide whether your cells function or begin to fail. Push the temperature too far, and the machinery that keeps you alive starts to lose its form. This is why your body treats overheating as an emergency long before you consciously feel danger. In the 18th century, Charles Blagden studied how much heat a human body could endure. He entered heated rooms so hot that objects placed inside could cook from the surrounding air. Yet in dry heat, the human body could survive far more than anyone expected. The reason was not toughness in the ordinary sense, but one of the body's simplest inventions. Sweat turns the surface of your skin into a cooling system powered by evaporation. As water leaves your skin, it carries heat away and protects the temperature inside you. Without that constant cooling, the same body that seems strong could be destroyed by ordinary heat. This is the strange pattern of human life. We are fragile, but we are protected by layers of clever repair. The body cools itself, seals wounds, fights infections, replaces cells, filters blood, and corrects chemical mistakes. It does all of this quietly, while you experience life as thoughts, emotions, hunger, memory, and movement. But even the best repair system cannot erase the deeper problem built into living tissue. You can feed the body, cool it, protect it from infection, and rescue it with medicine. You can replace missing hormones, remove damaged organs, clean wounds, and slow diseases that once killed quickly. But eventually, the body faces an enemy that does not attack from outside. It faces the slow accumulation of time inside the machinery itself. In 1961, Leonard Hayflick challenged a belief that many scientists had accepted for decades. Some researchers believed normal human cells could keep dividing forever if they were kept alive properly. Hayflick found that many ordinary human cells grown in the laboratory had a limit. After enough divisions, they stopped multiplying and entered a state where they were alive but no longer renewing. This discovery was disturbing because it suggested that aging was not only wear from the outside world. Part of aging seemed to come from the rules inside the cell itself. Later, scientists connected part of this limit to telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of chromosomes. Each time many cells divide, those caps can become shorter, like a fuse slowly burning down. When they become too short or too damaged, the cell may stop dividing to protect the body. This is not the whole explanation for aging. because the body is far too complex for one simple countdown. But it reveals something important. Your body is not built from permanent parts. It is built from living systems that repair themselves until repair slowly loses the race. DNA accumulates damage, proteins lose their shape, stem cells become less active, and immune defenses lose precision. Blood vessels stiffen, organs lose reserve power, and recovery becomes slower after every serious strain. The body does not usually collapse all at once like a machine with one broken part. It loses margin, which means smaller problems become harder to survive than they once were. A young body can absorb sleepless nights, infections, injuries, bad meals, stress, and physical damage. An older body may survive the same events, but each recovery demands more effort from weaker reserves. This is why aging can feel so unfair when it finally becomes visible. You are not suddenly placed inside a different body. You are living inside the same body after decades of invisible repairs, compromises, and chemical negotiations. Every year, those negotiations become a little harder to win. Other mammals reveal part of this pattern in a way that is easy to imagine. A mouse has a tiny body, loses heat quickly, and runs its metabolism at frantic speed. Its heart can beat hundreds of times per minute, and its whole life burns through energy quickly. An elephant lives on a different biological scale, with slower rhythms, slower heat loss, and decades of life. This is not a perfect mathematical rule, and life is not an exact bank account of heartbeats, but the pattern points to a real trade-off hidden across the animal kingdom. Body size, metabolism, heat loss, reproduction, and repair all shape how long a creature can last. Small animals often live fast because their bodies must work harder just to stay warm. Large animals often live slower because their bodies lose heat more gradually and spend energy differently. Humans were born inside these biological trade-offs too, but our story took a strange turn. For most of history, people were often killed before aging had time to become the main enemy. Infection, famine, violence, childbirth, dirty water, and untreated disease took countless lives early. Humans who survived those dangers could live for many decades, but far fewer people reached that chance. Then we began changing the conditions under which our bodies had to survive. Clean water removed invisible killers from daily life before people even knew they were there. Vaccines trained the immune system before the real enemy arrived. Antibiotics turned once deadly infections into something the body could often recover from. Surgery repaired damage that evolution never expected any animal to fix. Hormone treatments replaced chemical messages that a broken gland could no longer send. Medicine did not make us immortal, and it did not remove the basic limits of biology. It gave the body more chances to keep doing what it had always tried to do. It gave the body more time to keep negotiating with damage, disease, heat, hunger, and decay. That may be humanity's strangest achievement. We became the animal that learned to study its own fragility. We opened the body and found pumps, filters, signals, clocks, repair crews, and chemical messages. We discovered that life is not one miracle happening once. It is millions of small miracles repeated every second until they can no longer continue. You are made from the same dead elements found in rocks, oceans, stars, and soil. But inside you, those elements have become something that breathes, remembers, heals, fears, and hopes. Your body turns food into motion, oxygen into energy, chemistry into thought, and dead matter into a living person. It is not a flawless design, but an ancient system patched together by survival across millions of years. Some parts are brilliant, some are fragile, and some only make sense in a world that no longer exists. Yet every day, this imperfect system keeps holding itself together against pressure from every direction. Every heartbeat is not just a pump of blood, but another small victory over disorder. Every breath is another exchange between your fragile inner world and the dangerous world outside. Every healed wound is proof that matter can break and still rebuild itself. Every morning you wake up means the chemistry held together through another night. One day, that chemistry will no longer be able to hold. That is the limit no body has learned to escape forever. But until that day, the dead atoms inside you keep performing the impossible. They keep arranging themselves into warmth, movement, memory, hunger, fear, repair, and consciousness. For a brief and extraordinary time, they become a living body, and that body becomes you.